Welcome in to the Just Basketball Show, your twice-weekly look at all things hoops. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. If you haven't already, follow us and subscribe on your podcast app platform of choice. 5 stars only. Hit subscribe on the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel as well. And want to tell you about our partners at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a player prop DFS platform where you can pick more or less than your favorite players across multiple sports, including the NBA and the NFL. Sign up today with our code JustBasketball, all uppercase, all one word, and Thrive will match your first deposit up to $250. That's a great bonus. They have a ton of great things you can pick through there. So again, that's Thrive Fantasy, Just Basketball. And if you're interested in some DFS advice, DFS picks, our guy Colby Olson and I are doing videos about that over on the TikTok. For the most recent one, we're recording this before I know how I did, but I went over Maxey and points and over on LeBron combined points, rebounds, assists. And I felt, frankly, pretty good about those picks.
Betting against the Jazz is just a winner, I think, every single time. Like, that should just kind of be one of the immediate, who are the Jazz playing? Is there any individual offensive weapon that you can just over on everything and prosper? It's a good recipe, I think.
Also, Tyrese Maxey with the heater he's on to start the year against a team really without a good point of attack defender right now in Cleveland, which it just seemed like a very simple, straightforward kind of bet there for me. So we'll see. All right,
very hopeful to say right now, Chris, that the Cavs don't have a great point of attack defender right now.
Isaac Okoro was hurt.
Yeah, and how much did he play last playoffs?
Not as much as he should have, would be my take.
Okay, well, I'm just saying. It's optimistic.
That guy,
I'm happy that you're still holding out hope.
Yeah, him and Okogie. I'm going to be there until those islands have been obliterated by global warming, Brendan.
Mm-hmm. Good.
That's me.
And you
next
should.
to my DN Waiters, next to my house on Waiters Island, which is been lost to time and sand and hurricanes and monsoons. So that's tough.
Time comes for all of us.
It does. All right, before we get into the big thrust of today's show, which is Brendan's going to present us top 5 NBA stats of the year, and then we're going to do a little what are we thankful for in basketball. That's going to be NBA, WNBA, women's college. I'm thankful for two very specific players. I'm thankful for a certain NBA player being very good at one certain social media platform. You can probably figure out who that is. But I want to ask you first, Brendan, have you watched at all, or are you at least aware of this David Beckham documentary on Netflix?
I am aware. I have not watched, but it's one of those things that everybody is talking about. So I have gotten the autoplay Netflix commercial numerous times at this point, and it's all the rage. Soccer fans love it.
So it's really good. I'm 2 episodes in, and I'm quite enjoying it. I'm enjoying some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I'm enjoying the candidness you're getting from both David Beckham and his wife and a lot of his former teammates, many of whom now are pundits now and so good at talking. It also made me wonder what NBA player or basketball player in general could live up to like this kind of documentary with the media circus and all that stuff. That is like a cultural icon that had some very ups and downs. And there's not quite, to me, Brendan, a one-to-one analogy because there's this point in the first episode where Beckham has this, gets sent off against Argentina in a World Cup game. And then he becomes like public enemy number 1 in England.
Yeah.
There's not really like the international, like that kind of thing couldn't quite happen in basketball. It doesn't exactly work that same way. But then I was thinking, okay, who has like this certain era? Who had all of these things that kind of played into him? And there's a darker tinge of it, and he's also no longer with us. But Kobe Bryant is the one that I thought would have made the most sense for this kind of documentary. If you're not going to give him the full Michael one, or if he doesn't get that, this would be the kind of person I want to like view them aging through that. He would be the one that I would have wanted for that. But now I'm also there's got to be some other really interesting candidates to do a little documentary series and kind of chart them growing and going through all of this in real time and with a high production level, which is that because we've seen some more schlocky documentaries of guys in recent years. I won't name names, but you can find them pretty easily.
The issue with this is how famous David Beckham is and how famous his wife is.
Yes.
And that not only are there's the international factor, obviously, just in that sport, but there's also the international factor in he now lives here and is a major player.
Part of the time, yeah. He's here part of the time. Yeah, but he owns Inter Miami.
I'm not going to get into his living schedule, but my point is he's relevant to Americans in a way that helps. So it's irreplicable, if that's a word. Unreplicable, dereplicable, whatever it is. So, but the one that comes to mind, if we just wanted to, Kobe's a great option. I think that makes a lot of sense. Tony Parker came to mind because he also has a famous now ex-wife and has the multinational, obviously, experience as an athlete. But I mean, look, he played for the Spurs and he hasn't exactly remained in the spotlight since retirement. I don't know if a Tony Parker documentary is going to go to number 1 on Netflix. I don't think Parker, the 5-part miniseries Parker, is quite going to do what Beckham did, but he came to mind because he was a very great player, had a lot of living experience in a lot of different spaces and places, and is at least good enough, well enough known that it would carry some weight. But the NBA nobody can do superstar athletes like soccer. There's no comparison.
No, the other Tony Parker thing, now that you said him, that clicked into mind for me, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misremembering this, but do you remember how in 2012 he filed a lawsuit against a nightclub in New York because he was there when there's a Chris Brown-Drake brawl, and he said he almost lost his eye? Do you remember this? I do.
Yeah. There's also some cheating allegations. There's a lot of mess with Tony Parker, both his fault and not his fault. And so there's a lot there. There's a lot of meat on the bone. An actual documentarian and journalist who's not just, reading off Wikipedia entries like I just did could do a lot there. I think it's a good selection. But now I'm a little bit terrified. So yes, let's pivot away from Tony Parker. I've said everything I need to say there.
Here's the 2 other points I want to make. Number 1, Yao Ming would also be another one that I would watch.
It's not happening.
I know. For lots of reasons.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Chinese government reasons, yes.
Yes. The current president of the Chinese Basketball Association, who has extreme and direct ties to the government. Yeah, that's not. They're not gonna. Netflix is not gonna have an exclusive production team walking around with Yao every day. Unfortunately, it would be an awesome one though.
Dirk would be one other one, I think, because it doesn't have the celebrity thing is hard to get to. It's kind of hard to match again anyone with that. That's a great point on your part, but I would look at that. The other part of this is, Brendan, are you aware of? I believe you're a fan of. You've seen this man in TV shows like Succession, and he's been in a bunch of Wes Anderson movies. Are you aware of who directed? Who's like the man behind the Beckham?
Yeah, remind me of his name.
He's Fisher Stevens.
Yeah,
Hugo. Hugo.
So
from Succession.
My best friend works near the World Trade Center in downtown New York and has on, I believe, multiple occasions seen Fisher Stevens and Leonardo DiCaprio taking a walk along the Hudson River on a midday lunch, get some fresh air, little traipse together. Just those
Mental
two. So
walks.
Fisher Stevens is absolutely out here. In other words, he's well connected. He's a soccer documentarian. He is the guy who made us think that Kendall was going to end up with the company because they had their little connection going in the final season. And apparently, Leonardo DiCaprio's right-hand man in real life. He's just doing it all.
Yes. It's great.
So he should direct Yao, is what you're saying.
Dirk. Probably Dirk.
Okay, Dirk. All right. Dirk's not cool enough. I'm sorry. It'll be like
Boris
him
Diaw?
and the... No. You're asking me if Boris Diaw is on the level of David Beckham? I think we've crossed into a too small niche here.
Brendan, the reality is that I think the actual answer is someone who's it would be Kobe, and it's just not that's obviously just not an option. So I don't unless it's who among the later stage stars now could it be? Is it Curry? But he's got his Apple. He already had the Apple one. Is it Clay's not quite at that level. Kyrie is like much too complicated.
The one that came to mind before you said Kobe, and I think Kobe's just a better version of, is Carmelo Anthony. Also,
Actually,
celebrity wife, and
yeah.
has some, just personal life stuff that could be interesting, and is a kind of smart, well-spoken guy that's connected around the league. You could get other athletes to talk about him. He's one of those underrepresented or sort of underrated, but players love him kind of guys. I think Melo could be an answer.
I kind of think Melo is actually the answer for everything you just said, but he's also going through this thing, kind of like how Beckham goes through in this documentary, where he is kind of around New York more in a way that he wasn't always. Now, like that relationship seems a little healthier than it was at certain times.
Yeah.
So I'm into the Melo one. Recent hot one to guess, Carmelo Anthony.
So Melo on Netflix, directed by Fisher Stevens, coming to your Netflix app in fall of 2024, and we're executive producing.
We're absolutely executive producing. No free ideas here.
All right,
anyway,
on to
top 5 NBA stats.
Number 1. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's absolutely insane, and it is regarding the Oklahoma City Thunder, who once employed Carmelo Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
The Thunder are top 3 in half-court offense and half-court defense this season in terms of per 100 possessions efficiency. They are a top 3 half-court offense and defense. And we talked about this earlier in the week, Chris, but that's exactly why I think you're seeing Chet Holmgren in the top 10 of a stat like estimated plus minus.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that kind of unexpected stat darling type of stuff for him and a lot of other guys on this team. But especially with him, a lot of those stats factor in on-off. And they were not an amazing kind of overall team last year. They had very clear weaknesses. And as we expected and projected, Chet has just slid perfectly into all of those voids and lifted them to a team that, right now there's nothing about the Oklahoma City Thunder that would tell you they're not a championship contender. And that number just feels like the chef's kiss version. That's the number one bullet point you would list if you were just writing somebody an email to convince them that the Oklahoma City Thunder can win the NBA championship. Top 3 in half-court offense and defense. Like, there's no hole to poke there.
That team is just legit. We talked about them, the contenders tier. There's not really anything I feel bad about other than youth and maybe like some spacing stuff right now. But even if you just go down, Brendan, like Isaiah Joe would be a key piece for a bunch of other teams, and they got him on the scrap heap. And it's just like he's additive to them. And Shea's doing what he's doing, and Chet has hit this ground. Like, that team is just. I have no notes on this. Like the fact that honestly, Brendan, the fact that it's top 3 half court offense is maybe the most impressive part of that to me, because that is like usually I feel something I kind of defer to older, more kind of established teams in certain ways having that stuff, and they're this young team that's got like a rookie, and they're just like, sure, let's go.
They were 16th last season. They've added over 6 points per 100 possessions to their offensive rating in the half court. And to your point, they do turn the ball over more than some teams, and they don't get a lot of rebounds. So some of the kind of younger team mistakes are still here for them, but they're rolling anyway. And Chet's a big reason why. But really, if you look at the on and off stuff, it's just Shea. It's just when he's out there, they're incredible. And when he's not, they're worse. The minutes with Jalen Williams have actually been better than the minutes with Chet, but kind of no matter how you slice it, everybody's contributing. They have an identity. They feel like a contender ahead of schedule for sure. Number 2, Mitchell Robinson is averaging 6 offensive rebounds per game so far this year, and has 29 more total offensive rebounds than anybody else in the National Basketball Association. 6 per game. You don't have any
He's
Mitchell
goblin.
Robinson thoughts? This dude killed your team, Chris. Start crying or something. This is a performance for you.
No. Not performative in that way. I thought you were still talking. That's why I wasn't saying anything. You were going to lead me somewhere.
He's just gobbling these up. I have another backup stat for you, too, which is who's number 2 in this total offensive rebound category. But give me your Mitchell Robinson thoughts because he's a monster.
And there's been times, Brennan, where I have thought Isaiah Hartenstein was like the better center than him just because I like the playmaking. And I kind of feel like even if you look at Mitchell Robinson's like shooting numbers for the year, he's like leaving food on the table as far as like 2-point percentage. There feels like there's like another bump for him coming just if he keeps up this offensive rebounding rate, which is like a big jump from where he was last year and finishes at a more normal clip for himself. That guy's just going to be a problem for not just like a team like Cleveland or any of these other teams in the middle of the East, but like that's going to be on the game plan in a playoff series for the Knicks. And if that's maybe a small way they're a little more dangerous than last year without having to make any trades, that's a big dub. I really like I have, as you watch him, you watch how physically, as you watch how he uses his frame, he's just like an artist at this very specific thing. That guy rocks. I want to see him like defend small ball 5 Giannis in like a second round playoff series or something. I think that'd be crazy.
I mean, a fully healthy year for him where he can start to make good on, I mean, pre-draft, and he had a really weird college experience at, I believe it was Western Kentucky, and then he was like, had eligibility stuff and wanted to transfer and ended up a second round pick and dealt with injuries. Like, this has kind of been a very slow launch for him, but if he can finally get his legs under him, play a lot of minutes and develop, you are talking about a guy who can, he's not just that, but we'll see. 2 more quick offensive rebounding stats, just since we're on the topic. Number 2, who I told you I would give you, do you have any guesses? It is not a center, so like I'm not just gonna be like, oh, it's Rudy Gobert. No, that wouldn't be crazy. It's somebody that would kind of surprise you.
I'm wondering. No, I don't. I feel like you're gonna tell me, and I'm gonna be mad that I didn't think of it. Just tell me who it is.
Asar Thompson.
I'm actually really mad that I didn't think of that because that guy is just everywhere. That guy is absurd. That guy is like might F around one day and get a 5x5 game.
Yeah. Asar Thompson has more offensive rebounds than Mark Williams, Kevon Looney, Rudy Gobert, Domantas Sabonis, Clint Capella, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and he's like 6'5". The other thing is New York is actually not number 1 in offensive rebounding rate in the NBA. It's just a tinge below the other team. But they're number 2 to the Utah Jazz, who have not had Walker Kessler for like half their games and play very small, and yet somehow are just destroying the offensive glass. The Utah Jazz are a very strange team. All right. The number 3 craziest stat of the NBA season so far. 2 players shooting basically 50% from 3 have one particular bond between the 2 of them. They are Dillon Brooks and RJ Barrett. Mm-hmm. Both Canadian, of course. Both picking up where they left off in the FIBA World Cup, where both, I think, shot better than expected. Which one of these would you bet more money to continue?
I'm going to go Dillon Brooks. I don't know why, but I just like.
I know why, because he's a better shooter than RJ Barrett. I mean,
he also just like feels like he is in a zone right now. He is absolutely just in this zone where I think he feels like he's using the cheat. Not that he wasn't doing this before, but I feel like after how Memphis ended, he even has more of a chip on his shoulder, which I didn't really totally know was possible. And that guy just looks very locked in. He looks very dedicated. Certainly the paycheck probably helps, but that guy is absolutely cooking.
I think some players need a coach that believes in them. I think that the level in which Ime Udoka believes in Dillon Brooks might actually have crossed over to being too much. It's too much love. He's letting this guy play like it's a YMCA. Like some of the shots, I mean, it's always been that way with Dillon Brooks. I guess I'm not going to blame Ime Udoka too much, but to your point, now that he's actually like seeing the ball go in the net, he's like, oh, nothing's stopping me. Like there is nothing holding me back now. I'm taking any and every single shot that I want to take, and I'm going to get as many minutes as I want because we do not own our first round pick, and it is off to the races here. All right, number 4, the Golden State Warriors. fourth slowest offense in the NBA so far this season.
Is that Chris Paul's music I hear, Brendan?
It is. After being second fastest last year.
Chris Paul, baby. Not
Chris Paul and no Draymond Green. I think those are the two ingredients between the suspension and the injury for Draymond and then a bunch of Chris Paul. But regardless of whose fault it is or why it's happening, that is not going to make them the best possible version of themselves, and we just know that for a fact. So that has to change. They have to play faster one way or another, and if it means playing Chris Paul less or using him as a trade chip, if things continue to be rocky for them as a team, like they're still in their championship window, and taking one of the core ingredients of who they are as a team out of their team, it's shooting yourself in the foot. This is pretty crazy. This maybe should have been first.
I'm also just a little bit worried about Klay Thompson. Just a little bit.
Is there anybody or anything that you're a lot worried about?
Yeah, the sanity of every single Detroit Pistons fan in the greater Detroit area, for one.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, worried about Washington Wizards fans. Worried about the Bulls not doing something dumb.
Okay.
Like there's some things that have like real things that could go wrong, but like Klay Thompson, it's a little worry because I don't expect them to. Like you'd expect it to get somewhat better, but if it continues, then like we're gonna go from being like a 3.5 to like above a 5. You know, the dial's gonna get turned.
The problem with Klay is we're talking about they needed to find something to take them from where they were last year up a level. He's a level down from where he was. So is Andrew Wiggins. Chris Paul's helping in his own way, but not really solving their core issue of offensive creation for yourself as a scorer. And Draymond has been, MIA. So the Klay thing is not the sole problem, and I agree his shots will go in, but somebody needs to be better than they were in last year's playoffs, and none of them are even where they were so far. So it's it's getting scary over there.
And if even you're going to say, okay, one of the young guys steps it up in some way, it's not but it's not at that level. Like even if they're getting good minutes from some of these guys or like stuff,
which like they are already, right? I mean, they're getting fine minutes from Moody and Kuminga, but again, it's like, okay, but you're talking about like you're going to go up against the Phoenix Suns or the Denver Nuggets.
It's not those guys aren't elevating at the level that it needs to if you're going to have this slippage in other fronts. 100%.
Number 5, your backyard.
Uh-oh.
The Cleveland Cavaliers are 27 points better per 100 possessions with Max Strus on the court this season.
Brendan, he's been really good.
Yes. I mean, I think he's a very good player, but that stat is that's another level beyond very good player. That's like why is it like this?
Well, but I think there's like a very simple reason you could look at this and say like this is how this happens. This is kind of what happens when you have Max Strus. And you're a team in Cleveland last year who just like didn't have a lot of shooting and didn't have a lot of people that could run off screens and all this stuff. And they're just like, hey, now we have a guy that can do that. It makes things function better. It's kind of like a base requirement, I think, to be a functional NBA offense at the highest level now is to have someone who can do stuff off ball and take threes and is confident. And Max Strus is that. And he's playmaking and he just fits in well with everybody. He's been really good. And if you just watch how the Cavs are running offense right now, they have added stuff in the playbook, I think, only because Max Strus is around. Like, that is, good. There's stuff in the playbook that is only possible because they added someone.
I mean, you're paying him $16 million a year or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's good money.
Mitchell, Strus, LeVert, Niang, Mobley. That small ball lineup with Mitchell and no Garland is plus 46 per 100 possessions and 62 possessions played so far this year.
So, you did ask me, Brendan, if there's anything that I'm like majorly worried about. I'm very hyper concerned that George Niang is just not going to be able to play after like the first 5 minutes he's in a playoff game.
Yeah, well, there's a game log you can look at in the past of his career that might just, it'll at least ease up your anxiety because it'll just give you your answer.
Well, it's not.
But luckily, the Cavs aren't. I mean, like he's probably not like a second or third round player, but the Cavs don't have to worry about that, right?
Well, they have goals to work that way, and then you're getting again. There's more and more, Brendan. There's more and more chatter that Dan Gilbert's like a little more around this season, and that only means people get fired usually. So
Max Strus is probably one of the best bang for your buck kind of return on investment free agent signings of the offseason, I would say. Just in terms of team that really needed him, went out and did what it took, got him on a reasonable contract, and he's doing exactly what they wanted. Like that's exactly what teams hope for in free agency. So I think we definitely got it right when we were talking about the Heat last offseason, when we went through all those guys who had been on their team in the past and their kind of trajectories after leaving Miami. And we discussed Strus and Vincent, and we were like, I think Strus could keep it up. Probably not Vincent. Now, Gabe Vincent's been hurt, but we were right on that. I think Strus's skill set transfers in a way that makes him valuable outside of Miami. Gabe Vincent may be more like the previous generation of former Heat players who kind of bombed elsewhere. We'll see, but
should we do an episode that is ranking like the best bang for your buck free agents from last summer so far? Should we do that sometime in December, maybe?
Maybe a segment. I'm not sure how many there are.
I'm not saying
it doesn't really do free agents anymore, unfortunately.
We could talk about what Bruce Brown's doing in Indiana, and if like they're getting a lot of. We could just just kind of look at them. Look at some of the contracts that
I think
they
we
were
definitely
curious.
could.
All right, sounds like something we could do in December when post like we're close to the in-season tournament, NBA Cup. Like it's like gonna sneak up on us, and I'm pretty excited about it, Brendan. Got to tell you. But after that, we're gonna get into like a week where it's a little lead up to Christmas, and I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. But I'm curious to see what the schedule feels like after the tournament.
And we are going to be bringing you Bruce Brown and Max Strus content.
Hey, you know what? When you subscribe or listen to a channel called Just Basketball, I think you know what you're getting into. You do. We could talk about screens, We could. We could talk about the Pistons and just them being inept.
I'd rather not. I put one of the prominent people involved there out of sight, out of mind in about May, and I've left him there.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, time to be thankful.
Time to be thankful.
All right, so what we're going to do here is just rapid fire back and forth a little bit through some different things in the wide world of basketball we are thankful for this Thanksgiving. If you have your own, tweet us, comment on YouTube, do all that stuff. But I'm going to start with a funny one. And that's that Kevin Durant. I'm just glad this guy just can't quit Twitter. Never let him quit Twitter. And this is most recently because he was not adding anyone, but calling out the weirdos who have things to say to him in his DMs when their bets don't hit because he doesn't do a certain thing. So this is what he tweeted. When I get you paid, you don't DM me and send a small percentage to my Cash App. I also love that he's a Cash App man. But when them parlays don't hit, I'm every name in the book. Y'all ain't real. Kevin Durant, you're speaking an absolute truth there. That's one of the things I don't like about sports betting is that people just like direct their anger at like athletes and can do so anonymously on Twitter. I think that's super weird. But the fact that Kevin Durant is just super aware and just like says things that are accurate sometimes on Twitter amid all the other things Kevin Durant does on Twitter, I just love that we have a filter like that. Like him on Twitter is the most unfiltered you're ever going to get an athlete, and I'm gonna miss it when it no longer when he's gone out of the league and doesn't need to do this ever again.
Is he going to tweet more or less when he's not in the league anymore?
Brendan, is Twitter going to be around? Is X going to be around at that point? Like, I don't know.
Is he going to thread more or less after he's retired?
He's just like, Kevin Durant's doing TikToks.
This is a tangent, but I'm pretty fascinated by like some of this generation that was around during like the explosive growth of the NBA. It's very strange to imagine them doing the jobs that used to be there for former NBA players. Like, is Kevin Durant going to do color commentary for like the Golden State Warriors? No. So it's
well, like even someone like Roy Hibbert has like. Well, even someone like Roy Hibbert who like washed out of league, like he's not doing TV stuff. He has his own YouTube channel and it's pretty good actually. Like Roy Hibbert's out here like making content.
Yeah, but like. So like Kevin Durant has the boardroom, he has his investments. Is that it? Like, is he gonna just sort of fade into the distance because he doesn't really have to continue to make money? Probably.
He's going to do him and chill, Brendan.
Yeah, I think so. All right, my number one. I'll just start us off a little bit more simple because some of mine are bigger conversations. So let's keep it loose. It's like the beginning of the Thanksgiving meal when you sit down with family and it's just catching up. It's niceties. It's not like how was your health scare in July, Grandma. It's like, hey, how are you? And so Caitlin Clark.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful for Caitlin Clark for a lot of reasons. One, she's like the most easy watch, and I mean that in terms of like she's easy to watch, fun to watch, but also like if you turn on an LSU game, you're going to be entertained. Sorry, LSU. I'm clearly getting my powerhouses switched up.
Well, you're just Kim Mulkey and her saying weird stuff in front of a mic, and Angel Reese and Angel Reese's mom arguing with people on Twitter. Gonna keep it
positive on today's show. So I'm not thankful for Kim Mulkey, but anytime you turn on an Iowa game, you just know you're going to be entertained because she's involved every single second of the game. She's doing insane stuff. She is the most in control of her team's destiny of like any player that I can remember. It's just sort of crazy that she kind of like got a coach to let her do this, I would say, in one hand, but also, of course, a mind-bending talent and somebody who's very cool to watch and cool to think about in the future. We have the WNBA draft lottery coming up in like 3 weeks. We'll see kind of where she might be headed then. And by next year, we will see her probably start to dominate the WNBA and take it to its next chapter. So I'm ready for all the Caitlin Clark future wrinkles, but in the moment right now, I'm just turning on Iowa games and honestly just like giggling to myself because she's insane.
Am I going off that? I have one that is just that we are living in the boom of women's basketball. Caitlin Clark is, I think, at the tip of that spear, but it's not just her. It's Angel Reese. It is Paige Beckers. It is the super team is in the W, led by A'ja Wilson, led by Brianna Stewart. It is growing ratings. It is growing awareness. It is expanding into new markets. It is the global growth of this game, and I don't think we should just take it for granted. This is a moment where we don't often, Brandon, I think, realize sometimes when we're living through something monumental. Like you look back and be like, man, I wish I would have maybe thought about this more, or take better notes, or watch this a little more closely and really understood that I was living and observing something in real time. Caitlin Clark is a big part of that, right? Because you're never going to – I mean, the odds of us seeing anything like her ascension in college again are incredibly low. That's a one-of-one college superstar in so many different ways. But this boom for women's basketball right now, and as it continues to grow and the league gets – and the W in particular gets to where it can get, we shouldn't take for granted that this is just going to keep happening. Like you have to, I think, appreciate it right now. And it's making the game so accessible. It's making the game at a higher level. It's raising the stakes. It's giving the players – careers and financial opportunities that they wouldn't have had before. This is an amazing time for that part of the sport, a sport that has long been undervalued and overlooked. And it's cool for us, I think, to see that and to get and with Clark in particular and this whole class that's going to come in the draft next year. That's like 2003 like vibes of star talent coming into the league. Mm-hmm. That we shouldn't take that for granted either.
No, it's a lot of dominoes falling at the right time. It's the super teams followed by a generational draft with, budding stars already in the league, and it's sort of just clicking on all cylinders right now in a way that you don't worry that it's going to crash. I think it is just on an upward trajectory. All right, you want to go to your next one? That was kind of a both of us.
Yeah. Mine is just that I'm thankful for Anthony Edwards. I'm just thankful for every single bit of this guy. His personality is, for one, just charismatic, and he's fun. I saw this clip of him. Like they asked him, "What can't you do?" And he said, "I can't beat the Wizards. I'm 0-6 against them." And he was just like having fun.
I love that he even knows that.
Yeah, it's amazing that he just like had that. Like that was his instinctual answer was, I have not beaten the Washington Wizards in my 3-year NBA career, and I can't do it. And he's just having fun with it. Mm-hmm. Like we are watching a superstar on and off the court grow, Brendan, and expand and rise in front of us in real time. He's adding new parts to his game this year. Like the passes he's hitting Gobert with on slips are amazing. Like I think it's gotten to a level where it's a real tool for him in a way I didn't think it was before. I just want to be along for this ride and observe the rocket ship this dude is on right now, because it is not a new take for the show, but I'm just thankful for that guy because he is charismatic. He's everything you could want in a young superstar, and it's very rare, I think, today, especially in the way that media works. You don't get guys that are this kind of raw, and this you kind of feel like you kind of know them to some degree. Like I don't feel like we have like a good read on like Shea or. And like pick another like young.
He wears Skims
and under superstar. He does wear Skims. That I do know that about him. I guess. Also, apparently he lived in a house owned by like a former crypto scammer. But that's maybe my Instagram's lying to me. The whole thing right now is like we don't get to know these guys in the same way I think we would have 10 years ago. Like Anthony Edwards by now would have had like a Lee Jenkins SI profile or a Chris Ballard SI profile or like an ESPN the magazine feature that would.
The John Krasinski one was really good.
Right, so you get that, but it's like you don't get them in the same regularity anymore. Kind of updates throughout the career. You have to. You're really relying on players to want to be open with you and kind of tell you a little bit about themselves. Ant is one of the few guys in the whole league that I think really does just present himself as who he is, at least from what we can tell, and I love that.
He is at 24% assist rate this year, which would be a mile past his previous career high. And the threes are still going in, 37% from deep. Like, as a basketball player, the leap is here, and the personality, it's almost like the basketball is catching up. Like, we knew this guy was going to be a star. It was just a matter of time, and here it is. Big game on Friday for the Wolves, by the way. They are tied with the Kings in the in-season tournament standings, and they play each other on Friday night. So that might be the Kings game we talk about next week. Give us an excuse to get two birds with one stone there. All right, I'll piggyback off that. The next generation of NBA talent is something I'm thankful for. Last offseason, or even through last regular season, we started to worry about the 2019 draft that was supposed to be the future of the league, with Zion and Ja going at the top of it. And they each have had injury situations, off-court situations, team success, inconsistencies that I think scared some people. And it's not just the standings. It's Nike and Jordan have a lot of money invested into these people, and that trickles into who cares about basketball and what players are famous and popular and which aren't. And the league cares as far as who it markets and who it can count on being recognizable in a generation where, you know, ESPN's ticker doesn't say like Thunder versus Wolves anymore. It says Shea versus Ant now. You know what I mean? That matters. And so I think this year has just solidified that we're fine. The league's in good hands. The talent is overwhelming. Anthony Edwards is just one ingredient in that, but you have Victor Wembanyama, Tyrese Halliburton, Tyrese Maxey, I would include. The entirety of the Oklahoma City Thunder roster, I think you could put on that list of just incredible, entertaining athletes in this league who carry themselves well, compete at an incredibly high level, and care about bringing kind of the league forward in different ways. Like all those people I just listed are going to do interviews. They're going to do commercials. They're friendly. They're involved around where they are. And I'm not trying to say that Zion and Ja are like the only two people in the whole league who have ever gotten on the wrong side of that, but I feel great about where this is all headed. And there's been a lot of breakouts already in the first 10, 15 games where I'm like, we're good. And I didn't even say a lot of names I probably could have said.
I think there's names you could say that are like going to have sometimes difficult times like making all-star teams because the competition is like just going to be loaded at their position. And I mean, you don't have him on your list in our doc, but it's like Devin Booker should be on that list to me. Like I know he's a little bit older than those guys, but it's like that like you're in this, he's going to be one of those guys that as Durant and Curry and LeBron obviously like age even more than they already have, Booker's going to be part of that superstar where he's just that's one of the guys. Luka, I think, is in that class, like obviously in that class as well. They're going to be kind of like in between some of the really young guys we're talking about, and then like the Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid class. Like there's that also really great kind of late 20-somethings class of guys as well. That is, and there's other names we could have thrown in there too. The league, I think, Brennan, from top
plus
to bottom.
Cooper Flag. I mean, you can't forget him.
Yeah, just no more photo shoots with Duke. That was a tough look for some of the vibes there. Just PR advice: don't do things with pitchforks as a white man in the South. I think like overall, Brendan, top to bottom, the league is in just a place where I think the talent and the personalities you have are. It feels like in such a healthy place from a who the people are in the league right now perspective. I mean. You just the personalities are unique. You're getting different kinds of players. You're getting superstars in markets that are not traditional like hotbeds. Like the fact that you have this Oklahoma City team in Oklahoma City is really unique. And you have Halliburton in Indiana, and you have Ant in Minnesota. Like you have Wembanyama back in San Antonio, which is like aside from the Popovich era, like never been a real. That's not a hotbed destination, but he makes it that again when it hasn't been in some time. And then you're going to get expansion. The league just feels in like such a growth moment that I'm excited to see where it goes, but it's because of the star talent they have right now. That is what drives it more than anything else.
It kind of feels like from the market standpoint, we're getting to the point where a lot of media pundit people tried to say we were a while ago. Maybe like when LeBron went back to Cleveland or things like that, where it's like, oh, the market doesn't matter anymore. And it's like, and then it kind of did because, Kawhi went to LA, KD went to New York, LeBron went to LA, and the chips kind of fell where they typically have fallen. But, you can be Tyrese Halliburton and, be on JJ Redick's podcast, and they're only on national TV once, but I feel like most NBA fans know who Tyrese Halliburton is, So I think we're headed in that direction. I mean, even Zion and Ja, it's Memphis and New Orleans. It's not exactly like those guys were being pinned as the next people because they played in like Miami and Dallas. It was very, very small for them too, and they were able to rise to the top and be, generational kind of hype guys in their own right, coming from South Carolina. Like, I think that's another cool aspect of it is you don't have to kind of come up through the New York high school, Duke, drafted to the Lakers pipeline to be able to be the face of the league, get a shoe, be on the next NBA in-season tournament commercial in an oversized suit. Like you can do it from wherever. All right, what's your next one?
I'm going to go with LeBron James. This is the most Chris Homer pick I possibly could do, but like we're not going to have him for much longer. We're just not. Like time, no matter how much longer he says he might want to play and all of that, I can't believe that he's going to hang on and like do more than hang on, obviously, than for like that much longer. Like he is old now. It has been over 2 decades with this man, and he's still awesome. He's not the best player in the world anymore, but that guy is still incredible and does things that are breathtaking. And Brendan, frankly, I also just want the corny side of LeBron. I'm going to miss it. This guy is oftentimes unintentionally just the corniest person that has ever existed. This week, I keep seeing this clip of him doing a backwood celebration with Christian Wood, which is just like hilarious to watch LeBron like doing like he's smoking a blunt, and I'm just like LeBron.
And then did you see the back and forth with him and Stephen A. Smith on Twitter over it?
I did
because Stephen A. is obviously well known for his stay off the weed catchphrase, and he tweeted a clip of that celebration and said LeBron like don't even make me say it, and then LeBron like filled in the gap, stay off the and whatever, and then they had a nice chuckle. So basically what I'm saying is he relates to Stephen A. Smith, who's close to 60, more than like probably the rookies in the NBA, and that just goes back to the corniness, I think. That you're talking about, but I like this version.
I do too. It's a different side of him. I kind of just want him on the grand stage as much as we can get it, just one or two more times. I don't know how much I believe that that's possible, but I'd like to see him at least get to try. And I just also just love that. Like, I thought the Rui comments this week about him and Dillon Brooks were just really funny. Like,
I didn't see him.
Rui talked to basically how, like, Dillon Brooks is trying to, like, create something, and LeBron's, like, seen all this before, that, like, basically in the span of LeBron's vast career, this Dillon Brooks stuff is, like, really significant. But, like, absolutely Dillon Brooks is going to be, like, 7 minutes in LeBron documentary.
Probably will be. I think that goes back to the thing I was saying about Udoka and Dillon Brooks. I don't know why he left. I know this is not the point of what you're saying, but he left Dillon Brooks on LeBron for like the whole game after starting Jabari Smith on him. And then that made Dillon Brooks start taking bad shots because he legitimately thinks he's as good as LeBron James is, and he's like, I'll beat him, whatever. And then LeBron drops 37 because, again, to your point, he is some sort of Terminator man that has been sent to the NBA to destroy it for 20 years. Do you know what he's shooting from 2 this year so far?
I looked at it the other day, and I have forgotten it, but I remember just kind of
68%
when I looked at it. It's absurd.
Which, of course, is not going to hold. But if it did anywhere near hold, it would be a mile past his previous career high, which was 62. His first year, or second year as a Laker when he was playing a bunch of center. 68% from 2 at age 39 going on 40. Crazy.
Just the fact that he also just keeps, like, even if it's not as, like, he's obviously, like, so far past his athletic peak, but yet he's still capable of things that, like, a lot of NBA players never can do. That's also when I'm going to feel especially old. But when he is gone, it's going to be like, it's truly going to be like an era thing where it's like when he is gone, you're going to be like, man, you should watch this guy more just because this is,
I think it would have been hard to watch LeBron much more than you. So I hope you don't have that regret.
If I'm being candid about it, I don't think I watched him enough during the Miami era.
You were bitter?
I don't know if I was bitter, but it was like I was in high school. So it's like, how much am I like always like cruising around watching hoops, and then I go into college and I had like, you're just busy. So it's like that just became something that slipped a little bit. But then you get to the playoffs,
I would say that's
like
when I
you watch
watched
every
him
single
most,
game.
or at least that's like the most that's the version that I connect to the most, which I know is obviously not going to be the case for you, but yeah,
mine's like 20.
When he gives you
honestly,
20
mine's
years,
2018 LeBron. Mine's 2018 LeBron. That LeBron season's so funny. It's that there's so much in that season that is just hysterical. And
when he's around for 21 years, I feel like we got our fill. But I get you. You're like, when there's 0 remaining games to consume, you're gonna feel a little bit of that, regret.
It's just the fact that he is still doing what he's doing at his age. Just we might not see this ever again. And just to think about him being where he's at and what he's still capable of, it's like we project. Like there's been all the talk with Vic about, okay, is he the best NBA prospect since LeBron? To like match LeBron's career, like you have to really look at it and be like, that's an insane thing to ask anyone to match, much less like a 19-year-old. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's a one-of-one career that in some ways I am in awe. If you look at it, it's encompassing. It's amazing.
How are you going to feel when Luka breaks the scoring record?
I don't have like an emotional.
I'm just kidding. I think he's the most likely guy to do it of whoever is in the league right now, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, he would need Luka would have to like seriously just have us like a couple summers of like no hookah Luka and just coming in great shape and like ripping off 60 pieces, because I don't know if Luka's playing 2 decades.
No,
I don't think anyone's playing 2 decades.
I think it takes an insane type of brain to want to. And that's the ingredient that
and
is
maybe
maybe the
money
least
spent on his rehab and physical care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a lot of people who, especially with how much athletes make these days, it's like, for what? Why am I going to kill myself every day for 20 years? I mean, you do it because you're the number 1 overall scorer and you're, argument for the greatest player of all time, but it takes a certain type of person to even care enough or want it enough to play that long at any level, let alone being as good as he still is. All right, 5-out basketball.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this watching the Jazz Suns doubleheader over the weekend. And then I was thinking about how many more teams are playing this way now than we realize. I think it kind of has snuck up on us a little bit, but it's in large part because of the bigs developing enough skill to make it possible. I think we all just assumed like the future would be like a bunch of Ryan Andersons out there, and it is not. It took guys like Porzingis, Markkanen, Holmgren, even like Miles Turner. And then there are some teams who just play super small, the Nets, the Clippers, whatever. But it's cool, and it kind of, I'll just do these together because the other one I had left was variety. And I just love the place that the league is in right now where, yes, a lot of, in a lot of cases you're talking about pace and space, get up threes, skilled size wins. A lot of the core principles of how you're going to win in the NBA right now are obviously the same because the league is what it is in this current moment in time, and you have to beat the best to win a championship. But how teams are getting there, how they're building rosters is all different. The best player on any of the championship contenders we could go through, just think of how different all those guys are. How different Tyrese Halliburton is from Kevin Durant, or how different Donovan Mitchell is from, Chet Holmgren, right? Like, there are just such variety in terms of how you're getting that job done, and the fact that so many teams now, with young coaches especially, are just saying, screw it, let's try 5 out. We have the roster, we have the shooting, let's just see what happens, is another cool little wrinkle that I think is going to maybe ripple outward from there over the next few years. And maybe I have a list of 6 teams that I feel like do it consistently. Maybe it's 12 in a few years, but there will also be other teams still playing through big men and different, types of styles too. It's just a very cool kind of moment in time as the evolution of, we know we need to do these core things, but like, how do we want to do that is really fun to watch.
Well, and the kinds of players we're getting, I think, is also, Brendan, just dictating a lot of this, right? Like, you're getting really funky, you're getting like non-traditional skill sets for different kinds of players, right? Like, look at the Spurs. They're like inverted in a lot of ways with Wembanyama and then Sohan like running a lot of point. And then you have the Thunder who just like have Chet Holmgren at center, and he's like the skinniest dude, and yet he's playing the 5. And you look around the league, there's a lot of the centers now run a little bit leaner. They're a little quicker, but they're still doing some traditional center things. And then you have guys that are one of one, like obviously Jokic, and you're getting these players that are just so. Like, I'd be curious to see like when guys that are like Cooper Flag is like a good example of this. It's like guys who are that age now and they're in the league in a couple of years. Okay, like what were you watching that led you to kind of be?
But I think we're really seeing that, honestly. Like, I think like somebody like Halliburton, or the way that these guys are so comfortable. Yeah, the Thompson twins. Like, the way that you're just seeing that comfort making decisions in the blink of an eye and playing basketball like it's a Hail Mary on a football field at all times is that byproduct. But you're absolutely right that more is going to come, and when every player in the league grew up watching this iteration of NBA basketball, what does that look like? But the part that came to mind when you said it is actually too how the non-shooters have been able to fit better now. And, I made the joke about like we all thought it would be a bunch of Ryan Andersons and how it's not going to be that. But we also, I think, all assumed that somebody like Asar Thompson would have no place in the NBA. Get out. If you can't shoot the ball, you're banished. We're not even going to consider you. But by having so much ball handling and shooting and IQ at every position now, we're sort of like working our way back into like, okay, maybe these guys can fit. And if you're smart enough and good enough to make that happen and use your other talent to allow those guys to be the best versions of themselves, even if they're not great shooters, those guys are having a little bit of a renaissance in their own way, or at least we're seeing new ways to use them, like Gary Payton and Bruce Brown being centers. You know what I mean? Or running your offense through Alperen Şengün. And then maybe you can have a Amen Thompson brought in because, well, if your center can do all this and he can shoot and play make, then maybe you can have a non-shooter like Thompson and use him in creative ways. And it's just cool to watch all the ebbs and flows of this because, it probably was never real, but people on national TV and otherwise spent a lot of wasted air saying that this league was like headed toward a bunch of everybody doing the same thing, bombing threes and playing boring basketball, and that's just a lie.
Yeah, not every person in the league is going to turn into Daryl Morey, like a Daryl Morey disciple. That's like, it's not what has happened, and the league is better for that. That is true, but that was never really, I think, on the table. I think most people don't really like the way Daryl Morey designed his basketball teams in some way, right? Like the Houston versions, at least.
They definitely don't like the James Harden of it.
But
the way Daryl Morey's team right now is playing is nothing like the way that Harden played. So even, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like even that has evolved. So it's a fun moment, I think.
Yes. All right. My last one. I just like that we're in this era of players doing good. Larry Nance Jr., is in the headlines this week for some work he's doing down in New Orleans fighting against food insecurity. He's been doing a ton of stuff dating back to the COVID year in Cleveland. LeBron has obviously done this. A ton of other guys have. Brendan, I think of sports teams and their communities in this country as communal goods in a lot of ways. Like they are part of the fabric of our communities in a lot of ways. I think it's important when guys put their name on something and go back and do something that is benefiting people. And I just like that we're in an era where we're seeing these communal fabrics, I think, strengthen between the NBA and its players in particular, more than ownership. I think that is just a cool thing in this overall kind of era of sports advocacy that I'm glad that we're getting that. I mean, in women's basketball, but also men's basketball. So I just am. It's cool to see that in real time and see what these guys are willing to put their money and time and energy into. And not everyone's obviously going to do it, but I think.
Yeah, I think it's another thing to kind of watch with this next generation. To go back to some of the Ant and everybody else talk that we had earlier on in this is how do they pick up that baton, right? LeBron and KD and different guys, Curry, who have gone out of their way to be outspoken on things or just be brands, but make that more than just a money-making endeavor. Like, what happens next? And I think the fact that you're seeing these other guys. I want also another example of this is Aaron Gordon. In terms of really purposeful stuff, he's done a lot of stuff with, like, young kids of color in STEM in different communities that he's played in, especially Orlando. And I like it. I mean, who am I to say? I'm not saying that not doing it this way is some sort of problem with me or something, but I appreciate, maybe as like a journalist or whatever, is being incredibly purposeful about it. Not just like everybody can do a camp. That idea has been around forever. Dominique Wilkins probably had a camp. It's not that that's not helpful, but it's like you have more money, you have more resources, you have more awareness of this stuff. So like, identify an issue that's personal to you. Get people in your camp that can actually work on it and be able to make a real change. And, my last job before doing blogging about sports media, which is much less impactful career path that I've taken since, is we worked with a lot of athletes on this stuff and did like entrepreneurship seminars and giving back seminars, financial literacy, a lot of this stuff with different athletes. And they're asking cool questions, and you can tell that people like LeBron really made an impact. Like I, got to hear Scoot talk through what he wants to do in Georgia, and LeBron's name came up verbatim multiple times as an inspiration for what he wants to do. Like I heard Dyson Daniels say, "There's not enough care about like Black and Indigenous people in Australia, and he wants to like do more for them." And Patty Mills, is a trailblazer for that stuff. And he mentioned Patty Mills. Like you can see that the younger athletes are watching, and that is very cool to see.
I mean, I think in terms of like mental health, DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love talking about it as openly as they have. I did a story about this when Kevin Love left Cleveland. Like the people that it impacted them in a real way. Like, it has, like, them talking about this and making it human is just such a big deal. It's just such a big deal.
I mean, if people see, like, tonight on Tuesday, as we're recording this, the Suns are playing on their in-season tournament court with their City Edition jerseys, and it's all centered around Hispanic culture, and it says El Valle, which is the Valley in Spanish, and Devin Booker is, like, one of the only Mexican-American NBA players ever, and he's become really close with a lot of, like, community leaders in that space here in Phoenix, which is, like, a complete missed opportunity if you're not doing that, because this state is made up in large part of Hispanic people, and he's made a dent there. So you can definitely tell that it matters, which is the best thing to say is everybody's going to do it their own way, and it's not an obligation, but it's like, hey, it's on their minds. They're not just like, yeah, give me my $60 million and shut up, which I think is how NBA players get portrayed sometimes.
Yes. Do you have any more?
I do not. I'm only thankful for 4 things.
I'm thankful for you, Brendon. That's my 6. Thankful for you. Thankful for our production team. Thankful for our friends at Just Sports. We're doing good stuff. Feeling good about it.
Same.
Can I ask you one? I have one Thanksgiving question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving dessert?
I have 2.
Okay, that's fine.
Pecan pie. I say pecan,
Yep.
Sorry. And
Pecan?
pecan would be, like, I think that's how they say it in the South. That's, like, probably the more accurate version. And my aunt makes this awesome fruit salad that is, like, yogurt. So it's like a creamier fruit salad, yogurt and walnuts and, like, strawberries, grapes. And it's just always, it really has no bearing. It doesn't have a lot of, like, Thanksgiving-ish food in it, but she just has always made it as a Thanksgiving thing, so I associate it. So that would be up there too, but that's more a me thing. But those would be my picks.
That's also got to be, like, a nice counter to, like, all the other food you're eating the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's like, and you can just have, like, a little scoop of it. It's not like you're committing to a whole pie slice after you've just been, like, gorging yourself all night. Yeah. It's the perfect little cherry on top. There's no cherries in it, but it is the cherry on top.
Apple pie for me.
Classic.
Big up. Yeah, classic. Got a
ice cream, no ice cream.
I'll anyway. I'm not gonna. It's not a must, but I'll take it if it's there. I'll take whipped cream
Warm?
if it's there too. Warm, yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's the way to do it.
Ice
cream melts a little.
Yeah, give me Got to be warm. Got to be warm. Give me a cup of coffee with that. We're off the net. We're off to like a great 45-minute nap after that. It's just good.
Nice, wonderful.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what you're going to be up to in about 48 hours.
Yeah, 100%. I'll watch some football. There's no basketball that day. Can eat. I'm running 5 miles in the morning. I'm gonna earn
Always
my food.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's end there. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Back at you next week with more of your hopefully favorite, twice weekly basketball podcast. We'll see you soon.